just sort of letting it wash over us as a mandatory thing we had to do.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to the thing we have to practice the CPR. And you had been like so deadpan the whole day.
Yeah.
Like almost expressionless in the way that you just have to grit your teeth and do stuff for work sometimes,
Sure.
right? And then we got to the point, I think we were paired up, or at least we were next to each other. We got to the point where you had to be doing the CPR. And then you got like so into it and you were like, and then under your breath, you just went, come on, come on, come on, don't do this to me. Come on, what about Paris? Do you remember doing that?
No.
I almost died. Like, it was a good thing we went to CPR class because I stopped breathing from laughter. And to this day, every time I'm like trying to, like I could be wiping a surface or like trying to fix something, under my breath, I'll be like, come on, don't do this to me. What about Paris? And it's one of my favorite jokes you've ever made. And I was so sure you didn't even remember making it. But
No.
I think about it all the time.
Hi, Bilal.
Hey, Kev.
How you going?
Welcome listeners to this episode of Badgered. It is episode 6, I believe.
Sure.
And
So this one's, what did I call it? A while in the making?
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we've been talking about having a workshop episode for a while. And professionally, you and I worked as workshop facilitators together across multiple companies and have for years. And our kind of process of creating workshops, I think, is really interesting, really useful to artists who might want to run workshops themselves, really useful for educators in general. And I know we have a few listeners who are teachers. So yeah, we're going to jump into it. We're on Darug land, so acknowledging First Nations peoples and them being the first storytellers. And because they're beautiful custodians and continue to be, it means that we get to do really cool stuff like this. And I missed your face. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It is actually Wednesday, which means we can do a legitimate Waffle Wednesday. And I think we'll jump in and do a quick one. And then you and I will each take turns speaking through a workshop we ran recently with young people. And we're going to give each other feedback on how to improve it. And we might even, hopefully, share some of those resources online if people want to check them out. And we can talk about what that looks like a little bit later. Sound good?
Yes.
Do you want to waffle first?
You waffle first.
All right.
To be fair, like for our listeners, there may have been a pre-waffle.
There's always
There's
pre-waffle.
pre-waffle that may have not been appropriate for the camera.
Maybe that's the pancake.
Or maybe I can actually, see how we do for every episode we upload, we also include some pictures.
We do.
Maybe we can just include the picture with no context.
I think that's an excellent idea. So like listeners will now know that there's always a pre-waffle, mostly inappropriate for the podcast, but we sometimes share pictures about it that are about stories happening in our lives. And without context, I think they're okay to share.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Some of them.
Beautiful. There'll be a link in the show notes to our Instagram page where we post the pictures. And sometimes we have them in the video version on YouTube where you can also check out this episode. All right, I've got 3 notes that I wrote down. They are the word work, the word jihad, and the word plestia.
Oh.
So Waffle Wednesday is an opportunity for me to catch you up on all the stuff happening in my life, and I'm excited to hear yours as well.
Yeah.
The first one is work. Since the last time we recorded, which in that recording we spoke about both being unemployed and me running kind of freelance gigs, but mostly just not working. Since that recording, I have applied to 2 jobs.
Oh, yes.
Which I don't think we've spoken about 2. I think we've only spoken about one of them.
Yeah.
So the first one, I won't name the place because I think it's kind of inappropriate, but just in general, like I applied to an arts facilitation job, similar to work that I'd done in the past. It was a full-time gig. So I went from being like in that conversation going, capitalism is the worst. I don't think working is conducive to living. And then almost a couple of weeks later, I was like, but I do need some money. So I applied for a job because I thought it might be good. And it was so interesting for me because, like, I don't know if you can relate to this, and maybe we're secretly arrogant in the same way. I went in just so expecting to get the job, and I didn't. It's like I went in going, I am made for this position because it's really similar to work I've done in the past, which is going into schools, working with communities, running art programs that have outcomes and sharing them with the public. It's literally been my career for the last, like, more than a decade.
Yeah.
So I went in, I put my written application in, I got an interview, and I was like, yep, sweet. I went in, and I felt like I did amazing in the interview. And then like 2 or 3 days later, I got an email, and they're like, unfortunately, we found someone else for the position. And I was like, it was such a humbling moment. And
Do you think you needed it?
I think I absolutely needed it because then a few weeks later, I applied to another position. And it is, or was, the position that I applied for is the old workplace that you and I used to be at. That was Bankstown Youth Development Service and is now Out Loud. So I applied for that position, and the shift in my psyche from like the first application I did being like so confident I was going to get it, and this next one, which maybe in some ways I was even better suited for, I was so sure I was going to get rejected even from getting an interview. So I put in my application. I did eventually get an interview. I did my interview, and the entire time, like I stepped out of it, and like I was reflecting on like how do I feel like I went, and I went, I think I did really good, like really well in this interview. But then I was like, I felt that way in the other one, and I got rejected. So I did the interview, and then yesterday I got a call from them, and I've been offered the position.
Let's go.
Yeah, so keen. And none of it is official yet, but I think hopefully by the time this recording comes out, I will have signed a contract and we'll be working there part-time. Or it all falls apart and we cut this part out of the recording. But yeah, it's...
just long.
Yeah. So anyway, he's not... but yeah, that's my first update, is I'm technically employed, but part-time.
You know, the bad side of this is there's like less excuses for us not to be recording because you...
I had that thought as I was driving to you now, because we're at your place and you're in the Bankstown area, and I'm like, I have a job like a minute or two away from you. So now we have more excuses to hang
Maybe
out.
have a different space to record in.
Yeah, I'll come into work the first week. I'm like, yeah, cool. So can I use this room? I'm just gonna go in, and you might see Kevin's. Don't worry about it. Just we're on a lunch break for 2 hours. Yeah. So that's my first one. That's work. The second update is hopefully there'll be a link for this in the show notes too. Is that since the last recording, we have launched the third book for Guesthouse Publishing, which is Home Between the Cedar Trees, written by Jihad Yassin. You came along to that launch. Thank you so much for coming.
It's beautiful.
And yeah, we were outside in a courtyard area. Maybe I can include a picture or two of the launch. I'll see if I can get that in time. And yeah, it's out in the world. It's on sale. I'm starting to send out all the pre-orders online, and some people came and collected their pre-orders in person and bought the book, and that's out in the world. And I'll say my last one, and then if you've got any questions about my waffle, you can ask.
Actually, maybe before you go to your last one.
Yeah.
Because you were briefly mentioning it the other day, like when you were doing your little kind of spiel for everyone.
Yep.
And how really in your first book, you was like adamant about, you know, Ella and you had kind of publishing those two.
Yep.
Which I think was maybe kind of like almost, if you want to compare it to like the MCU universe, like the phase one.
Yeah.
Phase one. Is there like phase two in your mind? Like, is there any vague notions?
I had a phase 2 in mind before we even started phase 1, but I think since then it's shifted. Because like what I sort of did, and I said it in the acknowledgements of my book, if any of you real fans, if you read my book right at the end, I go, thank you to all these people who helped out. And I call out Jihad and Ella by name, and I go, you guys are next. We're going to publish yours next. So outright, even before my book was out, I'm like, I'm going to announce that these 2 are the people who I want to do it with. And then I also had 3 other names for people that I wanted to publish, but I hadn't spoken about it, and still haven't spoken about it publicly anywhere, because it was like in flux and I didn't get permission from the artists yet and all this stuff. And kind of what's happened is like 5 other people have joined that queue. So there's like 8 or 9 people that I'm having different conversations with, and I have no idea what the sort of timeline looks like anymore. And some people have kind of pushed their dates later. Some people are like, I'm ready now to create something. Some people I had not even been speaking to before Guesthouse started. Now I've since met and might want to be doing stuff. So yeah, I'm not ready to announce anything publicly, but there is a phase 2, but I have no idea what it looks like. But I knew what it looked like beforehand, but it's changed.
Yeah.
So I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but the experience of having done the first 3, which I think is a good thing, changed the way I look at what the business should be doing. So there'll be more books coming in future, but they weren't the ones, most of them weren't the ones I originally planned for that second phase.
Oh, exciting. And so what's your last one?
The last one's kind of related to the second one. One of the really exciting things about releasing the books with Guesthouse is the readers' quotes on the backs of the books. And all the people who give readers' quotes, I love with my whole heart. And they're kind of people I know personally or have worked with kind of remotely. And Jihad has, and I'll put a link to the reader's quotes that's on our Instagram page in the show notes. He's got kind of 3 reader's quotes on the back of his book. And the first one is Plestia Al-Akkad, who is a really fantastic Palestinian journalist. And my third really exciting update is that on the 12th of October, I don't know if we haven't spoken about this at all.
But I saw it.
Online,
yeah.
right? So on the 12th of October in Parramatta, in partnership with the Sydney Muslim Writers Festival, I'm going to have an in-conversation with Plestia, who's doing basically her Western Sydney book launch of her book, The Eyes of Gaza. So it's in my bag right now, and I'm like writing all my notes and creating my questions, but that's the other thing that's filling my time. So I got rejected from a job and got a job.
Yep.
I launched a new book through Guest House Publishing, and I've signed up to do an in-conversation with Plestia for her Western Sydney book launch.
Exciting.
Which feels like a really busy period. And it hasn't even been that long since we recorded.
And you know what would be cool for a future episode is because you've done these kind of in conversations with authors that because you've done, this is not your first one.
No.
You've done a few of these.
Yeah.
Oh, like just for me personally, I don't know if anyone else would be interested. Just like because you're talking about how you're taking notes and all of that stuff for the actual event, it'd be cool to see the process you go through for reading a book, trying to figure out how you develop the questions to kind of ask the authors.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about it. I think it's such an intimidating process because I think anyone who's in the literature industry or you're just an interested reader, you've been in scenarios where you've watched an in-conversation run badly and like either the facilitator talks too much about themselves or does the thing where they ask a question, the author gives a really great answer, and then they sort of just move on to the next question. So it's not like a deep and meaningful conversation. So there's a lot of pressure to do that well, and I'm so nervous about it. And I maybe by the next time we record, I would have already done it, and we can talk about how it went. But I guess my main piece of advice that I've learned having done them before is that you kind of want to be led by the author. And there'll be a link to that event in the show notes, and then hopefully we can have a chat about it once it's done.
Cool.
That's me waffling on a Wednesday.
That's great. Great waffle. Delicious.
Also, it's Wednesday, the 24th of September.
Also, we messed up. First episode ever. On 3 but no 3.
On 3 but no 3.
1, 2. Okay.
We didn't mess up. We fixed it.
I love the optimism. Right?
That was a loud clap.
That's fine.
Tell me about what's going on with you.
Nothing as exciting as you. I've been trying to rack my head. Because actually, I did have a lot to waffle about.
Yeah.
Just that they weren't appropriate for
None of
the
it is good
camera.
for this audience.
So I was trying to find appropriate levels of waffle.
Just to clarify as well, it's not like inappropriate in a hugely offensive way.
Oh, no.
It's only in that we're only going to get a certain level of personal on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice look behind the scenes of, this is us, but it is also a version of us. And I think that it's unhealthy to be like, here is everything going on in our lives.
When we say inappropriate, it's not like, we're committing racism. I don't know. We're not committing crimes.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat waiting to hear what you were about to say. It's not like we're committing. I'm like,
just maybe socially inappropriate.
Yeah,
right?
completely. So what are some appropriate things you can talk about?
What appropriate things? Maybe our mutual friend, Yasmin Lewis.
Yep.
She has been telling me for so long that she wanted to go climbing.
Yeah, okay. I know something about this. We'll keep
so,
going.
and then finally, maybe 2 weeks ago, after like a year or so, and I'm pretty sure she won't mind me saying this, but she finally asked me to show her the ropes.
Hell yeah.
So I've been coaching her.
Oh, so you've already done it?
Yeah, we've done it. She is surprisingly good at it.
She's a badass in so many ways.
Yeah,
that's not surprising.
For someone that's like barely climbing, she's very, she's got a lot of perseverance.
Yeah.
Like even, like she'll just immediately, the moment she falls, she'll want to go back up. I literally have to say, just chill for like 5 minutes, let your muscles rest.
Yeah.
But no, it's been really fun coaching someone.
Man, I love Yaz so much, and it's so interesting to hear the way she is as an artist and worker and friend also applies to her doing something like climbing. Because she's completely fearless.
Yeah.
Like she's fearless in the way that she does anything she's interested in, and she's extremely dedicated. So like it's not a surprise to hear that she does that in like a physical context, but it's really nice to have it reinforced like what her personality is.
Now I
like.
just want to see you two climbing together.
Yeah, I'm kind of relentless sometimes in the same way, in that I maybe don't know my limits. So the version of this that I know is, I don't know if I had a small part in convincing her to try it. with you because I saw her at one of the Bankstown Poetry Slams, and I had that morning seen something she posted on Instagram about climbing.
Yeah.
And I was having a chat to her about it. I'm like, have you climbed with Kev yet? And she went, no. So at that point, she hadn't yet. And then I said to her the thing I say to everyone, and this is going to sound like I'm advertising you as a coach, but this is legitimately just how I feel about it. I went, you have to climb with Kev because he's really good, but he's also a really good teacher. And like I've seen him instruct people doing it, and he's done it to me, and it's just like really, really effective. And I'm gonna take at least like 3% of the convincing her to give it a go. But that makes me happy. Cool.
And maybe.
Can you give me like a uni update?
That was literally gonna be my
Hey,
next one. I was gonna say 2 more, and I was gonna think about the last one there if I want to save it because like I don't want to put it out to the world in terms of I've actually got to do it if I say it out loud. So
you have to say it.
I'll do the uni one. At least the uni one. I got onto the Dean's Merits list.
What is the Dean's Merits
I don't know.
list?
It's like apparently if you get onto some sort of every year they make a list for each degree that people are doing, and then if they receive a certain amount of marks, you get onto the Dean's Merit list, which I thought was really funny because like I'm like probably the worst university. I'm the worst scholar I can think of to make it onto that sort of thing.
What makes you feel like you're a bad scholar?
Because I hate learning. Actually, no, I don't
think that's true.
I dislike the university process.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, because I had the same uni experience as you are having now in a lot of ways whenever we speak about it, and it's kind of like that distaste for the process and the system makes you a really effective student when it comes to marks. Because you're like, I'm going to not game the system, but I'm going to like figure out how to do this really efficiently because I sort of hate it. And it's kind of like the chores you do around the house. What are your systems you put in place to make sure that they're doable?
Yeah.
And now you just being like, it's the Office meme.
Yeah.
You know, when like Michael Scott is there and it's like a flashback and he's got a mullet and a bum bag and the like, you know, a company is like saying congratulations. He's like just showing up. That's you.
That's pretty much.
Do you get anything? Do you get like discounts at a uni store?
Like my name's gonna be on the website. I've got some shitty PDF award.
What if you could like a realistic reward? What do you think would be a reward that you get that's again realistic, but you would be like, oh, I'm actually pleased that I'm on this list.
I don't know about realistic, but like it would be great if I didn't have to pay the fees for like one subject.
I think that's reasonable.
That's reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little mini scholarship to
so I think
congratulate
like
you.
I got the award because I got like a high distinction for a couple of
you got
subjects.
a HD. Wow. Okay.
It would be great if I didn't have to pay the fees for the subjects I got a high distinction in. Right? It's like I put in all this effort, got a HD in this subject. I don't have to pay for it.
I wonder if there's like anything problematic in that where like if the top tier students in terms of marks don't have to pay. Like how does that change the nature of how you learn and the students who kind of enroll, and is there a cutoff?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, congrats.
Thank
anyway,
you.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know it existed, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, there we go.
What's the thing you don't want to put out into the world? Do you want to put it out into the world?
Okay, so I think this first started back in what month was Ella's book launch?
Was it February?
February. Okay, yeah, sure. So
I think
back in February, during Ella's book launch, after the launch, I was having a chat with another mutual friend of ours, Vivian Pham.
Yep.
And then I think we're just talking about everything really, and then we were talking about kind of her process of how she's going with like kind of she's got a lot of things going on, which actually no, it's been launched now, so I think I'm allowed to say like one thing, she's got a play based on a book that's being going to be put on the stage next year, which funnily enough, which you know I'm in the promotional poster for.
Yeah, I saw a random picture on social media and I'm like, why is Kev in this picture for the coconut children? So then I sent you a screenshot of it because I thought it was funny.
Which I think actually, the thing is I hate my face in that photo because if you think about it, it looks exactly like the Yao Ming meme.
Oh, the basketball player?
Yeah.
When he's kind of like laughing?
Yeah. I was like,
in hindsight, maybe a little bit, yeah.
You know what? It's not just because we're both Asian.
No, you
right?
have the same facial expression in that picture.
I feel like I want to put like a side by side.
Yeah. Oh man, if you're watching the video on YouTube, hopefully it's up right now.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Anyway, so we'll talk about kind of everything that's got going on, and then we one thing led to another, and we'll talk about like if there was anything I wanted to write. I was like, yeah, I always have these ideas, but I don't know.
Yep.
Then afterwards, I started like thinking more about stuff that I would want to write. So there's two things. One thing is that every time I get an idea for a book I'd want to write, no matter how bad it is,
Yeah.
I immediately put it down in my notes app.
Love it.
So this is all of the kind of lists of story ideas I would want. My favorite one so far is cats as ghost removalists.
That reminds me of a kaiju cleanup squad. Like that kind of same ridiculous. I love, can I read a couple of these out? I'm going to read that one.
Okay.
Earworms as virus, which reminds me of Animorphs, and Sydney airport maze.
You know what that is.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm down for all of them.
So basically, for all of that, one of those ideas, because the hardest thing I've found, which I think is funny considering that we've both taught students how to write.
And we're talking about how to teach people to write in this episode, yeah.
The hardest thing I've always found about writing is like, how do you decide the sequence of events? Even maybe not the plot, but like, even though you might have a broader idea of the journey or the story you want to tell, but the exact sequence of
What's the stitch?
The exact sequence of events of how to put it, like how do you get from A to B, right? And for one particular idea, I don't know why, somehow it just like, I know how I want to tell this story. So for one of these ideas, I have literally plotted out every single aspect of the story. And hopefully in the uni break, I want to get started on. I want to just like start off with like a 30,000 word novella.
Yeah.
I don't. Should I pitch it to you?
Do you want to save the pitch for a future episode?
Yeah.
Or maybe we do it at the end if we have time. The
Yeah.
reason why I'm saying that is because I feel like this should be our next episode. Because I'm also working on a larger prose project. And I think we can pitch our projects to each other and maybe share an excerpt and then use that to keep us accountable as like a larger piece of writing that you're doing. But I will say that you're so consistent in that when you and I used to run a novella program together, you would struggle with teaching the same thing. We had so many conversations about like, but how do you decide like the structure of the plot? Like how do you know what's supposed to happen? And I think that is the kind of hardest thing. But one of the solutions is to write a shorter story in the world, which is you've already touched on, which is like a novella, like a shorter novel. Can you give me like a 1 or 2 sentence pitch of the story idea, or do you want to save it? I'm fine either way. It might be a good tease. Like you do yours as a sentence or two, I do mine, and then we say we'll talk about it more in the next episode.
Do you want to do your 2 sentences first?
You want time to think, yeah. My story is about a young man living in Bankstown who dies in the first chapter of his book, and the rest of the story is him taking on the job of being a grim reaper of souls, similar to the anime and manga Bleach.
God damn.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to go after that? Shit.
You said go first.
I did.
Bring it.
Man stuck in a robot bed trying to escape.
I'm down. I'm in. I'm sold. Are you taking pre-orders?
Not yet.
Where's the QR code? I'll scan it right now.
I have an outline. I can give you that.
I want to know more about what robot bed is. All right, we can talk more about that in a future episode.
Yeah.
Is that your waffle?
That's my waffle.
Your waffle was delicious.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it. Let's jump into a couple of workshops.
Yes.
Do you want to do yours first?
Yeah. Cool.
And what we're going to do is you're going to walk me through what your workshop is.
Yep.
And I'm going to try to give you a bit of feedback on how, if you were to do it again, how it could improve.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So, I mean, for a bit of context for listeners, I guess, is that, I mean, in our previous lives, you were essentially my manager, and pretty much every school term, I would be creating pretty much 2 workshops, more or less 2 workshops from scratch, and then the process would be like, I think maybe you and I would have an initial brainstorm.
Yep.
I would go away, kind of I pretty much developed the whole workshop for 10 different workshops throughout the term. I would come back to you, you would give me notes, and I'd go back and revise, and then we would kind of debrief every week. The interesting thing about this workshop is that this is pretty much the first time so for context, this was, I worked at a library for a short stint, and I was tasked to create a workshop, and this was the first workshop.
That Freudian slip.
I know, right? You know where this is heading. The first workshop I made without your help, without your input, and like I was like legitimately like scared when I was first developing the workshop. I was like, I don't have Bilal, my safety blanket. I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
I think I'll interrupt to give just a very quick bit of context to say, when we talk about a workshop for our listeners, you would, at the time we were working together, develop a workshop series. So you would come up with a plan to run classes with young people once a week over the course of 6, 7, sometimes 8 weeks in a row. So it would be 2-hour workshops each, which meant something like 12 hours of content for delivery. And I think what you're talking about in this workshop, it's smaller, isn't it?
So this was just a one-off workshop for 1.5 hours.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And the weird thing about this workshop as well is that initially I was hired to almost do a different type of role, where maybe I'll put a picture up on the Instagram or on the video, where essentially I would be singing nursery rhymes to babies, and then it was actually kind of amazing. It was really fun. But then they wanted to essentially utilize the other skills that I had, so they got me to
which I'm assuming was in your resume. And they're like, oh, you've run workshops before.
So for this workshop, essentially the library was running a writing competition. And essentially this workshop was supposed to be an event that would help get them more submissions.
This is the first time I've done this in 2 years, but I'm going to take notes about you talking about a workshop so that I can start giving feedback for it.
And I'm going to open up, and maybe because I've got slides as well, so this might be accompanying the video if you're watching this. So essentially the premise of the workshop was the premise of the competition, I should say, was pretty much a piece of writing that was going to talk about how humans and nature can kind of work together or live in harmony.
What form? Short stories?
It was pretty much anything really.
Okay.
So it's short stories, poetry, prose. It was up to the person submitting. So then I decided to kind of funnel it down a little bit, just to focus down a bit. And the piece of writing that the kids would create would almost be a letter from nature. So they would choose an element from nature. It could be trees, rivers, and pretty much writing from that perspective. And then really focusing on using personification as a way to help that. So that's a little bit of context, and maybe I'll give you one of this as well, which is the worksheet.
Cool.
So for the warm-up I chose, and I think I stole this from you actually, is that because I'm working with these kids for the first time, never met them before. I'm also working with a somewhat large range as well, year 3 to year 6, I believe. One nice way for me to kind of get to know them is, and maybe actually you can explain so I'm not talking too much, is this activity. Do you know what this is?
Yeah, this is a warning label or care label for, hopefully it's up on the screen, but it's like if you have a piece of clothing, what are the things you are allowed to do in washing and caring for it, and the thing you aren't allowed to do. So in the past, you and I have done this with young people as a warm-up, where you go, write your own care label. If someone has to look after you, how should they do it? What are the things they should do and shouldn't do? So it could be things like, make sure to feed gummy worms at night. Don't play loud music in front of it. So we're treating ourselves like a piece of clothing.
So that was just a really nice way to get to know the kids before I started. Then I go into a whole spiel about about why we're running the workshop, for the library competition and all of that jazz. The first actual activity that we do is, and again, this is just another way to kind of get to know the kids, and this again will be on the screen, is a tier list. So essentially what you see on screen is that I have all of these different elements of nature. So I have a tree, some rocks, I've got a river, the ocean, the desert, I've got dirt, and I've got a mountain.
Yeah.
And this is essentially a ranking exercise, but using a tier list I found was actually really effective. Because the moment the kids saw that, especially the boys in the workshop who will be kind of more familiar with this kind of, I guess, online culture type of thing.
Especially with video games. Like, it's often like rank your favorite video game characters. You know, Dante from Devil May Cry is an S tier, and like Sonic is an S tier, Mario is whatever. Like, you kind of, in terms of preference.
And because this was a PowerPoint, I was able to kind of move the pictures as well, so the kids could tell me where.
So you did this live with them.
Yeah. So they could tell me where to move it. And again, really easy activity. We're stepping it up a bit, where now there is no right or wrong answer. They just got to kind of justify why they believe, you know, mountains should be S tier or why dirt should be F tier. And it was, a nice way for the kids to contribute without feeling too much pressure.
Did they have to decide, like, as a group all together?
No. So they pretty much, when a kid picked one, that would move to a certain tier, and then they would have to choose from what's left, and say they would go to.
So like this kid would pick that one.
But kids could like disagree with each other,
cool.
or whatever. This then led to our first activity, which is the blue square here, where they pretty much choose their favorite thing about nature and all the reasons why they love it. So the good thing about the tier list is that if they didn't know what to pick, which some of them didn't, I say, okay, you just have to pick from the tier list. Do you like trees? Do you like rocks? Do you like mountains?
You've already done some of the work with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get you.
So then they can just select that thing from nature, and then they just write down all the reasons why they like it.
Okay.
Or if they, again, and I guess one of the things working with kids is being flexible. You could do the opposite, where what's the thing that you hate the most? And then say, you know, write down all the reasons why you hate it. So we do that, we share a little bit, and then I do a spiel about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
And then I talk about
the book, right?
The book, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Or even though, I think this happens in the movie as well, where in the book and in the movie, in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there is a section of the book where all of the dolphins on Earth, I think they just leave.
Yeah.
I think they float away. I actually don't know.
I think they get fed up with humanity, right?
Yeah.
And then they just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last thing the dolphin says when they leave is, are you familiar?
I forgot. I've read the book, but I don't remember.
They say, so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah, right. Which is a very famous quote from Hitchhikers. Yeah.
Which I think is a really nice way of kind of, I don't know, it's a nice way to explain personification a little bit, or introducing them to this idea that non-human things might have these thoughts, these feelings. These
like nature speaking with a human voice, but the voice is different because they're not human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that goes into our second activity, which is both the yellow and the pink squares.
Yep.
Which is, again, choosing their thing from nature, or again, I've given them some objects there to choose if they need to. About one is reasons why a tree would be happy, sad, or angry, so an actual reason. And then the pink square would be, what would they actually say in that situation? So for example, if a tree is happy that it is a windy day, right, because it makes their leaves feel nice or whatever, what would then that tree actually say? So it'd be like, oh, this breeze feels great in my branches.
So this yellow and pink are kind of
they're
related.
together,
Yep, keep going.
So that is the second activity, and you could separate it as well in terms of that the thing the object says doesn't necessarily have to tie into the reason. It's just that I'm trying to put them into a mindset, again, into thinking that, okay, these non-human things, they can have feelings, they can have emotions, they can have their own thoughts, essentially. And then I move on to the next activity, where they've been sitting down for a while now, so I wanted to break it up a bit. And this one surprisingly hit really well, where I got the kids on strips of paper.
Can I write on this?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, keep going.
On strips of paper, I think, what did I do? I feel I got the kids to write down different feelings or emotions. I'll crumple them, I'll put them in like a bag or hat or whatever. And then what I would do is I would pretend to be something from nature. I think I chose to be a tree. And then I would pick a piece of paper from the hat, and then like let's say a kid wrote down sad, right?
Yep.
I would, as a tree, try to show the kids the emotion of sadness as a tree.
Physically with your body.
Physically with my body.
Yeah, cool.
And then the kids would have to try to guess what emotion, as a tree, I was trying to convey.
Yep.
And surprisingly, the kids really liked that. I think they found it funny. Again, another element, a broad element of running workshops with kids I found is making adults do silly things.
Yeah,
they
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They love it. So then that then ties into the next activity. Again, what I'm doing with these actually all of the activities that I'm doing is pretty much trying to build up a base of different things that non-human objects can do. Again, trying to really introduce them to personification without necessarily explaining it until I get into like the final writing activity.
Yep.
So then the next activity to do after I do my little silly thing is that, again, they choose a thing from nature, and then they write down how would that thing show happiness, how would it show sadness, how would it show anger.
Yep.
And again, so for example, a rock might show anger by spontaneously exploding. I don't know, shattering.
Yeah. Or like cracking down the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So then, let me double check what goes next. So then, I think I introduce the mentor text at this point.
Which you've got at the back of this
at the
worksheet. Yep. And again, for our listeners, a mentor text is an example text you show students in creative writing to give them an opportunity to make a piece of writing that is similar to something else someone has written, to instruct them and give them an example.
Yep.
Yep.
And essentially at this point, this is where I start to introduce I explicitly talk about the idea of personification.
Yep.
And what it is, and then I use these two mental texts to kind of demonstrate that. So we read through the mental text, and then I do a kind of a pop quiz type of deal to see how well the kids have been listening, and then they also have to kind of participate by saying, if they want to answer, they got to make like a buzzing sound as if they were on a game show or whatever.
I like that.
So I ask questions like, for example, in the river, right? There's a line that says, the river's a baby, he gurgles and hums. So then my question to the kids would be, all right, why is the river a baby? What is it doing? And then they have to answer, okay, it's gurgling and it's humming. So again, trying to really hammer into the idea of personification.
Yeah, you got these lines like sucking his thumbs.
Yeah. So for both of these poems are really good examples, for kids especially, of how personification is used. And not only just personification, but the idea that these elements can be a character as well, you know? Which then ties into the next activity, which is the yellow box, where they're pretty much creating a character profile for the natural element that they've chosen. So they answer questions like, what is the tree's happiest memory? What is the tree's favorite food? What is it scared of? What is its favorite activity to do in its spare time?
Yep.
So again, kind of almost a really basic character profile, but again, they're doing it for something they might not necessarily have done before in class or as in-depth.
Yeah, especially for something to do in nature. Like you don't often do that for a character that's like a tree or a boulder or a river or a stream. Yeah.
So then this segues into the main piece of writing, the main writing activity that the kids are doing, that the kids are creating. And as it says here, I'll just read out the instructions I wrote. Time to write your poem. It is the future. Your favorite thing about nature has decided to leave the earth and has left one final letter. Write the letter from the perspective of your natural element, talking about why you have left, how you are feeling, what you will miss, and what you hope humans will do in the future.
Yep.
So as you can see, this is like really scaffolded for the students, really explicit about what they have to do. Now, the interesting thing about this is there are two different things two different
Two versions of your worksheet?
two different scaffolds, and I'll tell you why. Because I found, so I originally started off, and then maybe I'll put a side by side on the video. I started off with this one, all right?
The one with less scaffolding?
Less scaffolding.
Less like instruction for how to do it line by line.
Yes, but things I thought it would be I thought it would be less confusing because on one version of the worksheet, these are essentially sentence starters.
Yes.
Right? So I thought, okay, it'd be pretty straightforward that the kids can fill it out. I would say a good 30% found this confusing.
Okay.
So then I had to, because on the screen, I also have the two versions as well. So then for those kids, I had to jump to this version. And they found this so much easier. But I thought, in my mind, that they would have found this confusing.
Yeah.
So in the future, if I was to, one thing I would do if I were to run it again is I would go with this scaffold.
Okay.
So maybe, do you want to talk about the differences you can the differences you can see in the scaffolds that I
Yeah,
have?
the second scaffold, the one that has more instructions for what to do line by line, is almost a little bit like an ad-libs activity.
Yes,
where it's
like a closed passage.
Yeah, like fill in the blanks, and they get to make their own creative decisions around how they fill in those blanks. So the first line, as it's written on the page, would be the, and then in brackets, natural element is, in brackets, doing a specific verb.
Yes.
So it would be like, the tree is swaying.
Yeah.
So you could fill up with your own things. And I think that in a one-off context where you're only working with them one time, this kind of thing, this second version, is a really good way to give them successes so they won't get discouraged. So it kind of makes sense that they would veer towards something like this. But you're right in that like first impression being this seems more intimidating because there's so much writing.
yeah.
But actually, you know, if they're coming in, and I'm assuming this is like school holidays or like on a weekend, so they kind of don't want to have to think that much. So they can just do these fun things and then leave with a good piece of writing, and you've instructed them through it.
Yeah. And maybe building on what you said as well, because I think in running this, there was this initial idea of when I was working with this library that I would be kind of almost building up a workshop program for this library, which unfortunately did not happen because I got accepted into university. So it was a very awkward conversation that I had to have leaving the library like a month in. But what you're saying,
I mean, but don't feel too bad because it's also not really the job they hired you for.
yeah,
Right?
but I think what you say is so important. Is like we're giving them early successes almost would have benefited in almost like if I was like long-term thinking, if I was creating this program, it would have been so much more important during this kind of holiday program, giving the kids a fun experience, which I did, I think, lead the activities leading up to it. But I think making it easier would have even made that feeling of fun more successful, I think.
So did you run the workshop multiple times?
No, I just ran it once.
Once, and you used this version.
I used that version, and afterwards it's like, damn,
So then you've made this version with more instruction, but you've never actually tested it with them.
No, I made this just for the purposes of this episode.
Right, okay. All right, well...
I was doing this during one of my tutorials.
What a good student you are.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll come back to this one. Do you want to jump into some thoughts that I have about what you've gone through so far? Or is there anything that you want to finish off
let me
with?
see. No, and that was pretty much the workshop.
All right, I guess in general what I'll say is going to echo so closely the kinds of conversations we had when we were working together, because you are still so fantastic in the same way, and my feedback is pretty much going to be the same feedback I think I always gave you every time we had these conversations. I'm going to give it away by asking you a question. Kev, how long was the workshop with these kids? And explain why you're laughing.
I think, actually, honestly, that's a really good question. I'm pretty sure it was 2 hours.
Okay. 2 hours, and the amount of work you've just presented to me is madness. But it's like an amazing kind of madness. And it's the same kind of, I don't even want to say problem, it's the same opportunity, and I'm not just saying this in business speak, that we had when we were working together, where you create so much content and options that we would often get stuff when I would be like, hey, do it the next week with them.
Yeah.
Like, only focus on this thing. But if you only have 2 hours and you're working with them as a one-off, most of my notes are going to be about what are things to cut back, not because they're not good activities, but you're thinking about how you streamline a process for kids, that they come in and they have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And this advice comes straight from a colleague who I had and admired so much and continue to admire, and his name is Matt Roden, who I worked with for years and I think currently is at the MCA. And he's a total badass when it comes to how he thinks about working with kids through a writing process. And the best advice he gave me was every workshop, whether it's a one-off or a longer series, should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. So I'm going to jump through some quick hits for stuff that I think that you
And also the
can cut
reason why
back
I'm
on.
laughing is because like you didn't even have to be at the workshop, because at the workshop I literally had to either cut some activities or I had to like really rush through some activities just to make sure I could get to the last one.
Which I so assumed.
like-
And that kind of experience of having to rush through the activities if you're a facilitator stresses you out. And it also like doesn't let the kids kind of sit in an idea.
And also not to justify my over creating a workshop, but at least for me, I'm of the opinion, or actually it's my preference that I always have more than I need, because I would rather have to rush or cut rather than just kind of standing around like, oh, I've done all my things, I don't know what else to do next.
And that's that kind of a fear that I think all of us have, but it's one that you've expressed kind of multiple times to me. And I think my feedback for you is going to be about how you make a version where the planned version is really pared back and slimmed down, and then your extra activities exist in a way that are easy to swap in and out, where you don't have to do it on the fly, which is really stressful. So I'm going to just go through these one by one, and if you have questions for me, just ask. My main thing is I'm going to focus on just a worksheet to start off with, where I feel like, because you've already spoken about the tier list with them on the slideshow, this opening blue question, because it doesn't end up being something that they use in their final writing, I would cut it out, because they've already started talking about the things that they like, and they could really just pull it from the tier list onto their thing. It could just be like a single line where they go tree, or they do a short list, or you literally have it as printed out pieces of paper where they can just like grab the one they want and they're like, this is the thing. Because it just cuts one more thing out of the worksheet. So I would cut that opening blue thing from your worksheet. And what I would do is I would consider having your first page landscape. And these two questions where you've got the yellow one, why would they be feeling something? And then what would they say? I almost feel like that question, the yellow one, the pink one, and on the first page, your how do they move?
All on the first page.
I would have them all on the first page, landscape as 3 columns, because they all relate. So it would almost be a journey through what are you feeling? What do you say? How does your body move? So what they've done immediately is they've chosen their tree, and then they've got information about how it feels, what it says, and how it moves, which they can use in their final thing. And that's all kind of contained on one sheet. So that's my first note.
I like that.
From there, what I would kind of do is, I love that you you act out with your body. And I reckon my feedback for this is how you get that activity and turn it into a tangible line that they include later in their piece. Because you said that they really enjoyed it. And what you're essentially doing is this like thing that's really popular in like theater of the oppressed, which is image theater, where you create like a moment.
And
a
scene.
Yeah, you create like a scene, and sometimes it's even a frozen scene. And I think what you could do is, if you've got something where like you are pretending to be a tree waving around being ridiculous, you kind of want the kids to start building vocabulary around how to describe what you're doing. So I would do one addition to that activity where maybe you give them a list of verbs. Maybe you actually give them like a sheet that just has a whole bunch of verbs. And then what they do is they almost play bingo with you, where you act something out, and then they like,
they see it.
they're like, oh, he's being happy, so I'm going to kind of circle that. And what you're doing, because you've given them those words, they're words that they can use in their writing. And the way you do that is maybe you give them a sentence starter right there. Because you know how if you're writing a letter, especially in old school letters, there's this concept of like, you open your letter by being like, right now I'm sitting by the window and spring is just arriving, blah, 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 blah. I'm sipping at my coffee and I'm patting the cat that's in my lap. You want the thing from nature to do that thing. So maybe what you do is you give them a sentence starter that is, right now I am. And they describe what that thing in nature is doing. And that is a line that they can use in their final letter.
Yeah.
So what happens is when they step into that letter, they already have a line. And they have an opening line with like, right now I am doing this. And if it's like, right now I'm a rock and I'm splitting in half, it's such a good start to a letter from the perspective of something in nature. So I think build on the kind of image theater thing. I got 2 more notes.
Yeah.
The second last one is, I feel like for your middle section of your worksheet, I would slim this down a little bit in the kind of process between what do they fill in with natural elements as a character in your yellow thing, and then the letter. And I think they kind of need to correlate more closely, because the mistake we make as facilitators is we get them to build all this reading information like
using it.
What's your happiest memory, what's your favorite food, but they're not actually using it. And I think a solution for you, it's kind of different to what you recommended trying next, which is more structure. I'm almost recommending that you give them slightly less, but you do it into 3 categories. So their letter could be split into something like part 1, what do you think about the earth? Part 2, why are you leaving? And then part 3 is any advice or hopes. And then all these bits, they're like, your favorite food, what are you scared of?
So tie this into this activity.
So tie those 3 categories into all your prompting questions. So the side of your letter could literally just have 3 sections, and maybe even color it into like boxes where you go earth, why you're leaving, any advice. And then within that, you have all your prompting questions. And you could even potentially move them off to the side, and you kind of get rid of this blue section up here as the first activity, so that it's really streamlined.
So
I would play with it that way.
By getting rid of this,
and put it on the first page.
Put it on the first page, but you're saying then this becomes a full page?
Yes. And then your letter is, full page plus whatever prompt. And then you kind of get rid of these, or you keep them, but you like very clearly have them into sections.
But there's a obvious connection between the prompt that they're answering.
And the prompts on this side, on the left side, you literally have the same titles. Earth, why you're leaving advice, and then the questions. And then here, it's just Earth, why you leave questions. And they're just kind of getting the answers here, and they're rewriting it as a letter. So I would play with it that way. And then my last piece of advice is, in the context of delivering it in a library, I think sometimes you're going to get really interested readers and writers already. I think you should always go in with a blank option of just like literally no prompts, because sometimes it will discourage readers. And then all the thing about like, what about all the extra activities in case I run out of time? It's stuff like, come in with this for your very young, which is my last note in that, especially I've run workshops with libraries, they always give you an age range, and then they're like, and here's 4 kids who are like 3 years younger than they're supposed to be. And I think we've all had that experience if we've worked with libraries, so you come in with that kind of extra stuff. But I just want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with any of the specific activities. They are so strong. It's just the thing that we always talk about where we kind of over-prepare, which is all right, but you need to think about the journey through the activities, that they're a little bit more streamlined. I like your mental text. I kind of circled In This Winter by Judith Nichols. Nichols?
It's really good language.
So I kind of circled all the verbs, because I feel like they're ones that you can use, like crushed, proud, nipped, raced, catching, or caught, as really good personification, and focus on the verbs, because if you want to do personification, the kind of way you move, and you've got that image theater acting out, you're already kind of focusing on verbs anyway. That's
Thank you. This has made me extremely happy.
Good.
Just like doing this process again.
I missed it. It feels really good. I want to jump into one that I did really quickly, and it's kind of mirror how we used to work together too, because obviously I was your manager, but I would ask you for advice for how I ran specific workshops.
But to be fair, like for anybody watching, they're like, what Bilal just did is way more common than than the other way around. Like it was very uncommon for you to run through your workshops with me, right? Or rather, like you would do so, but I would not give the level of feedback, detailed feedback that you would give me.
And I think part of that made a lot of sense because of the nature of our jobs. It was my job to give you feedback. It was not your job to do that for me. I just valued your professional opinion, and I sometimes needed help when I got stuck. So actually what we're doing here, it's going to be similar to that. We don't have to go into really in-depth, but I have like 1 or 2 elements of a workshop that I ran that I want your help with. So I have run this workshop twice. Once I did it way back when we worked together. You might have even sat into it, but it's kind of changed since then. So we can forget that old version. Just acknowledging that it started by something that you might have experienced with me before in class. So what I've done is recently I ran a workshop for something like 70 or 80 students at once in a school hall at an all-boys school for year 7. So they're about 11, 12, 13 years old is the age range. And it's all of year 7, from the, like, I'm doing air quotes, bunny ears, lowest ability class, all the way up to their kind of, you know, selective streams and the students who are supposedly kind of more capable.
Yeah.
I say supposedly, and I use that language because I feel like the way we succeed in a classroom environment isn't actually always reflective of our ability.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that change things for kids. Anyway, what I did was, you might remember we've used a mentor text in the past, which is Lost Cat by Sydney Hardle,
Oh, yeah.
which I'm pretty sure you're the one that introduced me to originally, which is partially why I wanted to talk about it. Like, you're the one that showed me this text, and I got really excited about using it as an activity. So I had only an hour, because it was part of book week, to work with these young people.
Wait, 1 hour?
Only 1 hour. And the way I pitched it to the school is that we're not going to create a piece of writing in 1 hour. We're going to create a draft plan for a short story that they can write later. And they were completely okay with that. They understood that an hour wasn't a lot. So the 2 pieces of advice I need from you, this is similar to how we used to work, is tell me what I could do, please, that if I was doing this for 2 hours, how I could kind of instruct them through a piece of writing.
Yeah.
So what could I add to it? And the second thing I need your help with is the sort of plan that I give them. I feel like it's missing something. It's kind of just a series of questions, but I don't know how to turn it into a piece of writing. So I'll walk you through what I did.
Just in the future, are you imagining it with the same amount of students?
Yeah, I kind of want to be able to have this be an offering that I make out of book week, where I'm like invited into a school to work with a big cohort, and I have to have like maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 70 kids at once, but I want it to be something where I can come in. It's my first visit to a school, and as the like author, again, I'm doing bunny ears, but I am an author, to deliver it. I've got a book. So yeah, this is the way I ran it. My warm-up activity was, I'm happy to put both of these worksheets up on the screen and in the resources if people want to check them out, is our alphabet game, where I came in and I went, originally I was going to use one of our regulation activities from what we spoke about in our last episode. I came in ready to ask what's the best 5,000 things to fill a room with, but it was all of year 7 at once, and the boys were very unsettled, and I felt like they weren't open to a discussion. So I skipped that, and I went straight into, here is the alphabet, it's on your worksheet, write down a name of an animal for every letter of the alphabet. You have 90 seconds, go. And then, you know, the first person to get to 90 seconds wins, and they love a competition. So we did that. I stretched it to like 2 or 3 minutes, but they were like writing down a name of an animal for every letter of the alphabet. And then we did this thing where I had an example sheet that was filled out, and I went in and I read out the answers one by one for each letter of the alphabet. And every time I said a name of an animal that they wrote as well, they imagine that they start with, how many letters of the alphabet? 26? I always forget. They start with 26 points. If they wrote the same answer as me, they lose a point. So I was like, A, who wrote ant? And the boys, like, you know, half of them went, oh man. So then they cross off ant. But then the boys who didn't write ant, they got excited. They came up with an original idea. It was a nice way to gamify it. So they did that.
Actually, that's another really good point Rach raises. Like, when you're doing these kind of brainstorming, they're almost like brainstorming activities. A lot of the things that we do are almost brainstorming activities that then is like a pool for students to kind of draw from. If you can gamify that experience, even better.
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, I had your voice in my head when I wanted to turn it into a game, where it's like, what's the hook? So after we did that, we went straight into reading the short story. And on the worksheet, it's kind of there at the bottom left. It's called Lost Cat. It's written by Sydney Hardle. I'm going to read it. But what I also had was 3 examples of literary devices. So I kind of underlined them, and then on the side wrote down short story cheat sheet, alliteration, metaphor, and imagery. And then I gave definition for what each of those 3 things are, because I didn't feel like we're going to have a long time to kind of talk about it. So what my intention was, I'll say this before I read the mental text, is I wanted them to read this very short story told from the perspective of a cat that becomes a stray cat. And then they were going to plan their own short story told from the perspective of an animal. And this is Lost Cat by Sydney Hardle. 3 days after I cease mewling at the back door, I discover ferality agrees with me. My whiskers filter vibrations I've never detected before. Danger is imminent, but this time the dangers make sense. I'm liquid in the laneways, black lightning on nimble paw pads. I'm more capable than you ever imagined, clamping down on throats and silencing lovesick birdsong. I'm a sophisticate. I developed a taste for bin banh mi. When you want me back, I'm ready. let you embrace me, then sink my teeth in, skin thin as oily sandwich paper, two deep puncture wounds in soft meat. Very small, but kind of high level in the language, and very like metaphorical in the way it tells the story. So we read that. I explained to them the three uses, the alliteration, the metaphor, and the imagery. They struggled with some of the language like ferality or sophisticate. So we spoke about what those words mean, and then we read it again, just so they kind of had a full understanding. And it's why it's good to use short mental texts, because you can kind of read them twice and you're not running out of time. Then from there, the only other worksheet I gave them was this, which was hand-drawn. And I literally just took questions directly from the mental text. So on it, it says, answer the following questions from the perspective of that animal. And the animal is one of the animals that they wanted to choose from their alphabet list, which is on the other side of their piece of paper. So it's like, you've got 26 examples of an animal. And to jump back to the activity, I said, if you ever had a gap in your alphabet, when I read my list out, write down mine in that gap. So they had a way to kind of have a bigger pool of ideas to choose from. So they had to choose one animal. They thought it would be cool to write pretending they were that animal. They wrote it in the top box, and then they answered all these questions based on the mental text. So the first question here is, what agrees with you? So Sydney Hardle says, ferality agrees with me. If you're a shark, what agrees with you? And I feel like one of the mistakes I made is that one was kind of too metaphorical.
I was going to say that, like, I would have, like, if we're going to give quick notes now, like, like, I think explaining to the students what that means in the context of the story, and then changing that to, like, what suits you best, or what works well for you, something along that line.
Yeah, I think I
make the language more simple.
I think you're right in that I stuck too close to the language. But anyway, the point was, what we did for the rest of the session, because we only had an hour, is I gave them all these questions that were just ones I came up with based on the mental text.
So imagine at this point, I'm trying to remember how you normally run a little workshop, you probably had, what, half an hour left at this point?
Yeah, so for the last for 20 minutes, they sat down, they were on the ground in the hall, and then they just worked through these questions, and I went to as many of the kids as I could. And they were questions like, what have you never seen before? What makes sense? What doesn't? What would you compare yourself to in nature, not an animal? Who or what are you more capable than? Why? What have you developed a taste for? What do you do to people? What are you ready for? And then as kids finished that, I went in and I turned the page around and I went back to the alliteration, metaphor, and imagery. I'm like, here's where I want you to add these. And I would consider, if I did it again, I'd maybe tell them where they could put them in. But what we got to is, I reckon about half the boys did these answers really well. About half of them, I just didn't even get a chance. For the half that were left, about half of that half, so a quarter of the boys, I never even spoke to because there was too many at once. And then the other half were just sitting there being like, I really don't know what you're asking me to do. I'm really struggling with this. So they left, and I reckon, around about half the boys had a pretty good sense of answering these questions. But then I kind of just went, cool, you have, all this information told from the perspective of an animal. You could just put all those answers in a row and it will turn into a short story, kind of. But what the advice I want is, how do I make this process of asking the questions better? And if I had an extra hour, how do I then turn that into a piece of writing?
I'm going to maybe jump forward a little bit in terms of thinking, I don't know what you would have to cut. I would imagine maybe cutting the second reading, possibly, to be able to do this. But even though, like, you're working within constraints, I still think that there is a benefit of students actually creating something, no matter how little, within a single workshop or a session. So if it was up to me, I would say that after the students have filled out those answers, right, even if they're just choosing one of those answers as a kind of like almost like a starting line, like it's almost like kind of expanding on that answer, right? So what they do is they pick one of the answers, the single line answers that they like. They're gonna make that into like 5 lines. And then they also have to incorporate one of the 3 techniques.
Ooh, I like that. Okay.
Right? So like if it's something that, let's go back to the what agrees with you, right? It's like, again, expanding that. So let's say if they chose an ibis, something that agrees with an ibis is going through the trash. Just expanding that moment. And describing
like
that
zooming
moment.
Into it as much detail as you can.
And then add one of those 3 techniques. So then technically, even if they are a fast worker or a slow worker. If they're fast, they can then just go to a different answer
And do that again.
do another 5 lines.
Yeah, that's
Choose
awesome.
another technique.
I like that a lot. That
And that shouldn't necessarily take that long as well. It could be as long or as short as you want it.
you answered both my questions. With
But
that
I don't
addition.
know how that answers the
I
answer.
think it answers the other question of then how do you turn it into a larger piece of writing, is that what you then spend the rest of the extra hour doing is you get them to do that 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I meant like, how does that answer your first question about changing the way they answer the questions?
Well, the way it answers that is that it goes back to the writing process you and I would always talk about in work, where actually what an artist needs to be able to do is come up with many ideas and not use them all. And the mistake I made when I delivered this to the boys was I got them to answer every question and then was like, your answers are your story. But that's a mistake because what we need to do is spend more time in the like possibility space.
Yeah.
And what your suggestion lets them do is the answering of all the questions is not the process of writing the story. It's just giving yourself options to expand
So I was
on.
like, you know, however long, like you gave them half an hour to fill out all these things, right? Cut that down to 15 minutes. If you're still doing this within just an hour,
Right, yep, I
cut
get
down
you.
to 15 minutes. That gives you 15 minutes for them to pick one of the answers
and expand
go
it.
5 lines.
And then you kind of go, now you take this away in your own classes and then
you
do
can
that
do
again.
it again for another 5 answers.
Yeah, and then if I do have the opportunity to do that with them for 2 hours, I can do that.
Yeah,
and
do
then
that
they'll have
whole-
the
yeah.
actual piece
Yeah.
of writing, have them share, and then that's your 2-hour
Probably
workshop.
need to add maybe another 1 or 2, because if you do that, because doing all of just that already was 1 hour, right?
Yep.
They could spend a whole hour writing, but I imagine you'd need to break it up a bit, maybe.
I reckon they would spend like 20 or 30 minutes writing.
Yeah.
And then,
So that means you need to, what would you do for the other 30, 40 minutes?
well, it depends on the size of the group. I think 10 minutes of sharing is reasonable.
Oh, yeah.
And I also imagine what might need to happen is I used an extra 10 minutes. If I've got like half an hour of that last hour writing, 10 minutes of sharing, I've got like 20 minutes. I think we do feedback, but we do it with select students. So what I would do as a facilitator is go around and look for trends. Like if all of them are struggling with, you know,
one particular aspect.
yeah, or like they don't know how to incorporate the alliteration, or they don't know how to start, or they don't know how to end. I would choose 3 examples. I would give the boys feedback.
Yeah.
Because I can't really rely on the teachers in the moment to do that, because obviously you're not going to go in and prep them. Like they've got their own job to be doing. So I would do that, and then to the group I would present that. I would say, here's how you do these 3 kind of bits of feedback.
I'd probably also suggest, and it's just my trend of over creating.
Well, that's why I asked
think
you.
like maybe a section where you talk about this idea of zooming in as well. I think would be good in the same way that the mental text, you're zooming in about one story about one cat doing a few particular things. You could talk about the idea, applying that same idea but to the answers that they've chosen about, because I think maybe conceptually one thing they might struggle with is the idea of, okay, I have this single line that I've answered for this particular prompt. How do I zoom in to kind of stretch out that moment a bit more?
You gave me such a good idea. What I feel like I would do if I did it again is I would go in with 3 images of different animals, and then I would get them to practice the zooming on that image. So I would come in with a cat. I would come in with like a dolphin, and then I would come in. I'm trying to think about like different environments they've been in. And then I would come in with like a bird, like an eagle. And then you've got to go, all right, zoom in and tell me everything that's happening just out of the frame of this picture. Or in this picture, describe it with as much detail as you can. You could do a sense map. You could just literally go 3 things that you know aren't seen in this picture but are there. And then what they've done is they've already done the zooming, and if they happen to choose the same animal, they've already got 3 lines that they can use for their final writing. That's excellent. Done.
Awesome. This is good.
Sweet.
I like it.
All right. Whether or not this helped other people, it helped me a lot. I'm going to incorporate that into the next time I deliver this. Hopefully you feel something with the same.
And maybe, are we gonna, I don't know if I'll post an update, but will we share these materials?
All right. Here's how I feel, right? You can say no to this, and you can cut this later if you want to. But I feel like what we do is we make a free tier on Patreon and we post it there.
Okay.
I feel like that's what we do.
Sure.
And maybe what we do is there's 2 workshops, right? Just to gauge interest. I reckon we choose one of the workshops and we just do it without Patreon. We go, here's the resources.
Okay, and then one with
And then
Patreon.
if you want the other one, like we
So your one with the Patreon. So here, how about this? Now we're going into sausage talk.
Yeah, tell me. So behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. On our Google Drive.
Yep.
I'll share and this is for the listeners as well, or maybe any educators that might be listening.
Yep.
On a Google Drive, I'll share my lesson plan.
Yep.
And my worksheet as well. This won't be updated with your notes, just because.
No, of course, just the way it exists.
I'll share both the lesson plan, slides, and worksheet on the Google Drive. And then if you would like Bilal's workshop, you sign up to a free Patreon.
Yeah, you literally just put an email address in.
An email.
And we don't send you any emails to advertise stuff like that has nothing to do with what you're signing up for. It's literally just a Patreon account. And it's all I'm posting is my workshop.
Well, let's not, because we don't know. We might use the Patreon to say, hey, new episode out or something like that. But it would always be.
It would be related to Badgered.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I'm not sending it to advertise stuff that are unrelated to the show. Sure. It would be Badgered content only.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Google Drive, my workshop.
Sign up to a free Patreon
for Bilal's workshop.
Yeah, and I will, in thanks for people signing up, I will incorporate the note that you gave me, and I will rewrite that worksheet.
You have the worksheet. We have a lesson plan.
I think the worksheet for my one is the lesson plan.
Okay, yeah.
But
actually, just refer back to the video.
Yeah, and if I need extra instructions, I will add them. But literally, it's just 2 sheets, and I feel like it kind of speaks for itself.
Free stuff.
Free stuff is great. That's it.
Done.
Love you.
Love you. That was a good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes I finish and I'm like,
oh, I wish I should have mentioned that. Then the next episode is gonna be us creating a workshop from scratch.
Well, I mean, I did say that thing about maybe next time we'll pitch.
Yeah.
Our.
Not our stories, but our disco snail.
No, I mean, you know how earlier this episode I said maybe next time we'll pitch our stories we're working on.
Yeah.
So like, I think we have an option to do that or do a workshop.
Yeah.
So.
The only reason why I'm sticking to workshop, I like. The kind of, it's almost like we created a trilogy.
I get
last
that.
episode, the icebreakers, this one, we share workshops, next one we create a workshop.